The customs hall of Pylian Station smelled like sterilizer, hot metal, and the faint sweetness of recycled air that had passed through too many lungs. A low ceiling pressed down on the crowd, dark hands in oil-stained coveralls, pilgrims with prayer beads made of circuit glass, corporate couriers clutching sealed cases, everyone shuffling forward beneath a ribbon of yellow hazard lights that made skin look sickly. Except hers. She moved through the line like a calm current. Midnight blue skin, deep and luminous, seemed to drink the light and then return it softened, ocean glass, moonlit stone. Subtle obsidian scales caught the fluorescence along her cheekbones and shoulders as if someone had set delicate jewelry into her flesh. Not armor. Not threat. Ornamentation written by nature. Two curved horns framed her face like a crown, smooth, dark, polished. People noticed them and then, as if embarrassed by their own attention, looked away. Her hair fell down her back in soft waves, black silk threaded with steel. And her eyes, amber vertical slits, were the kind you felt rather than saw. Warm, almost inviting. Dangerous in the way a heater coil is dangerous, comforting until you touch it wrong. The guard at booth 7 didn't look up at first. He was bored. That boredom lived in his posture, shoulders forward, chin tucked, one finger tapping a rhythm against the scanner. When he did glance at her, it was the quick, practiced assessment of someone who had seen every species of trouble. Then his tapping stopped. "Name?" he asked, voice flat. His badge read Kelso, but the letters were worn as if he'd scraped them with frustration. She didn't lean in. She didn't smile too wide. She simply placed her slate on the counter with the softest click, as though the sound itself was a command. "Saren K," she said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It threaded through the air and left the space behind it quieter. Kelso scanned her slate. The machine chirped and then, oddly, paused, as if thinking. A thin line of red crawled across the display. Kelso's eyes narrowed. "Travel purpose," he said, but the question had sharpened. Saren's posture stayed grounded, confident. A slight arch in her lower back gave her stance an effortless regality, like she was standing on a balcony overlooking an empire instead of in a crowded customs hall. "Contract work," she said. "Maintenance." Kelso's laugh came out as a short exhale. "Maintenance." He looked her up and down, horns, scales, the kind of beauty that made people either want to impress or to punish. "You don't look like maintenance." Saren's gaze held his in a way that wasn't aggressive. Just unmovable. "And you don't look like someone who enjoys his job." A couple of people behind her snickered. Kelso's cheeks warmed. He pressed his thumb to the scanner again, harder this time. "Biometrics," he snapped. Saren lifted her hand, palm down, fingers long and steady. When her skin touched the glass plate, the scanner glowed blue, then flickered. For a heartbeat the light turned the color of old honey, amber like her eyes. Kelso blinked, startled, and quickly covered the flicker with a cough. The machine chirped again, this time approvingly. "Green." Kelso frowned at the display like it had betrayed him. "Fine. Go." Saren didn't move immediately. She slid her slate back into her coat with an unhurried grace, then inclined her head, just enough to be polite, not enough to be submissive. As she stepped away, Kelso's voice followed, lower. "Hey." Saren paused without turning. "You're on a watch list," Kelso said, and the boredom in him had evaporated. Something else lived in his tone now, unease. "Not mine." "Higher." Saren turned her face just enough that the obsidian scales on her cheekbone caught the light like a blade's edge. "And yet," she said softly, "I'm still here." Kelso's mouth tightened. "Pylian's got rules." Saren's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "So do I." She walked on, and the line behind her breathed again, as if they'd been holding it without knowing. The station opened up beyond customs into a spoke corridor that wrapped around the central drum. Transparent panels revealed space like a black ocean, stars sharp as needles, distant freighters dragging pale ion tails. The station's rotation gave everything a subtle sideways pull. You felt it in your bones, and the way loose fabric drifted toward the floor. Saren's boots made almost no sound on the composite decking. She moved with controlled grace, not hurried, not hesitant. People shifted to give her room without understanding why. She didn't push. She simply existed with momentum. A vendor hawked steamed protein buns. A child chased a floating toy drone that buzzed like an insect. Overhead, a bulletin holoscreen scrolled corporate ads, smiling faces, clean planets, promises of safety. Saren ignored all of it. She had a destination. Dock Ring 12? Bay 12C. Her slate buzzed once, a private vibration against her hip. She didn't check it immediately. She waited until she reached a maintenance alcove where the corridor narrowed and the crowd thinned. A wall panel hummed with the faint warmth of power lines behind it. When she pulled her slate out, the screen lit her face in pale blue. A message blinked on the display. No sender ID. Don't go to 12C. They know. Saren stared at it, motionless. Her eyes, glowing amber, narrowed just slightly, not in fear, but in calculation. She thumbed the edge of the slate, and a second message unfolded beneath the first, like a hidden layer. If you're Saren K-Chi, you owe me a life. Meet at the old grav lift. Bring nothing that listens. Her scales along her collarbone seemed to darken as she breathed in, slow and measured. The air tasted faintly of ozone. Somewhere nearby, a ventilation fan rattled like a nervous throat. Saren slipped the slate away. For a moment she stood as still as sculpture, listening, not with ears alone, but with the instinct that had kept her alive across too many ports, too many betrayals. Then she turned away from Dock Ring 12. The old grav lift was a relic from Pylian's first build phase, before the corporations had installed glossy transit tubes and polite, chirping guidance AIs. It sat behind a maintenance barrier marked with faded warnings, its doors scarred by decades of cargo impacts. The area around it was dimmer, lit by emergency strips that painted everything in bruised blue. Saren approached, her reflection warped in the lift's scratched metal. A camera dome above the door tracked her. She felt its attention like a fingertip on her spine. She reached up casually, like she was brushing hair from her face, and with 2 fingers traced a small pattern on the seam between panels. A pulse of heat answered beneath the metal, an old lock recognizing a language it shouldn't have remembered. The camera dome flickered. Its red eye went dark. The lift doors shuddered open with a groan that sounded like an old animal waking. Inside, the air was colder. Dust floated in slow spirals, caught in the station's gentle gravity. The control panel had been gutted long ago, wires hanging like dead vines. Yet a faint glow pulsed behind the panel, as if something still lived in the lift's bones. Saren stepped inside. The doors began to close, and stopped. A hand shot into the gap. Not a human hand. Too many joints. Fingers wrapped in synthskin, split at the tips into thin manipulators. The lift doors hissed, resisting, then parted again. A figure slipped in, shorter than Saren, hunched in a coat that seemed stitched from scavenged insulation and old corporate banners. A hood hid the face, but not the eyes, pale, nervous, darting. The figure shoved something against Saren's chest, a small, cold object, heavy for its size. "Don't speak," the figure whispered. The voice was young, ragged, and trying hard not to tremble. "Not here." Saren didn't flinch. She looked down at the object. A black cylinder, smooth as obsidian, with faint geometric etching that made her scales prickle in recognition. It wasn't tech she'd seen in any market. "What is this?" Saren murmured anyway, so softly the lift itself might not hear. The figure's hood tilted up just enough to show a mouth, thin lips cracked with stress. "It's a key," they said. "And if you don't use it first, they will." The lift doors slammed shut. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the lift dropped. Not with the gentle, rotational gravity of Pylian Station, but with a sudden, stomach-lurching freefall. Dust exploded upward. Saren's hair lifted, waves floating like dark smoke. The hooded figure slammed into the wall, gasping. Saren planted her feet, knees flexing, body absorbing the shift with practiced control. Her eyes burned brighter, amber slits widening. "Pelion doesn't have sublevels," she said, voice calm as a knife. "Not on the public schematics." The hooded figure laughed once. Sharp, humorless. "That's because Pelion isn't what they told you it is." The lift shuddered. The walls around them vibrated, and in that vibration Saren felt something else, an old resonance, a buried machine waking as if it recognized her. The black cylinder in her hand warmed. From somewhere beyond the lift shaft, deep in the station's hidden guts, a sound rolled upward, low, vast, and impossibly alive. Like a door the size of a city beginning to open. Saren's gaze snapped to the hooded figure. "Who are you?" The hood fell back. The face beneath was not fully human. Skin pale, threaded with faint circuitry scars. Eyes too bright. And in the center of their throat, a small port glinted, an interface jack. "I'm Mara," they said. "And you're late." The lift dropped faster. Above them, somewhere in the shaft, Saren heard metal screech, claws on steel, followed by a voice crackling through old speakers. "Target acquired." Saren tightened her grip on the cylinder as the lights went out, and in the darkness something moved toward them with eager mechanical hunger. What, exactly, had she just been delivered into? Darkness swallowed the lift so completely it felt like a physical thing, like velvet pressed over the eyes. The only light came from Saren's slate when Mara slapped it with the heel of their palm, muting it down to a dim red emergency glow. "Keep it low," Mara hissed. "Red only?" "The old sensors don't see red as well." Saren didn't ask how Mara knew. She could feel the station around them now, through the soles of her boots, through the faint tremor in the air, like Pelion had a second heartbeat hidden beneath the public one. The black cylinder in her hand had warmed further, not hot, but alive with a slow pulse. It fit her grip too perfectly, as if made with her fingers in mind. Above them, something scraped. A metallic sound, deliberate. Testing. The lift walls shivered, dust lifting in tiny eddies. Saren's long hair floated and settled again as the cabin dropped, far past any maintenance level she'd ever heard rumors of. Mara braced one hand against the wall. Their coat flapped with the fall, insulation strips fluttering like frightened feathers. In the dim red, the circuitry scars on their neck looked like thin vines crawling toward the interface port in their throat. "That voice," Saren said quietly, keeping her tone even. "Target acquired." "Who?" Mara's laugh was a sharp breath. "Not who." "What?" "A retrieval unit." Their eyes flicked to the ceiling as another scrape rang out. "They call it a hound. Because it doesn't stop once it scents you." Saren angled her head, listening. Her amber eyes, bright even in near dark, narrowed slightly. "And it scented me how?" Mara's mouth tightened. "Because you came through customs like you belonged here." Saren's gaze slid to them. "I did belong. Once." The lift jolted, hard enough that Mara stumbled. Saren barely swayed, knees absorbing the shock. The walls moaned, ancient metal complaining. For a breath, the fall slowed, then continued, smoother now, guided by something deeper. The speaker crackled above them again, distorted by age and distance. "Saren K-Chi." Her name was flattened into machine syllables. "Surrender the key." Mara flinched. Saren didn't. She turned the black cylinder in her palm and finally saw the faint etching more clearly, geometric lines that weren't decorative so much as instructional. Like circuitry drawn by a mathematician who hated right angles. "What is it really?" Saren asked. Mara swallowed. The port at their throat glinted as their Adam's apple bobbed. "It's access. The station has a core system that isn't on any corporate registry. It's older than Pelion's contracts. Older than the people who pretend they own it." They hesitated, then blurted. "Older than humans had any right to build." Saren's scales along her collarbone prickled as if the words brushed them. You're saying Pelion is a shell? Mara cut in urgent. A cover. A docking ring wrapped around something buried. Something asleep. They leaned close, and Saren caught the smell of machine oil and stale fear on them. And you. A scream of metal drowned the rest. The ceiling panel above the lift bulged inward as if punched from the other side. Screws popped. A seam split. Something thin and jointed slid through the crack, first a probe, then a hooked limb, its surface matte black like burnt bone. Mara shoved themselves backward, eyes wide. It's here. Saren's breath stayed slow. She could feel the hound through the lift, its weight, its intention, like a predator feeling for a weakness in the burrow. A second limb punched through. Then a third. The panel tore open with a shriek, and a head emerged, narrow, angular, wrong. No eyes, only a cluster of sensor pits that drank the red light hungrily. Its mouth was a ring of retractable blades that clicked with anticipation. Key. The speaker voice was now coming from the creature itself, vibrating through its chassis. Hand over. Saren lifted the cylinder slightly, letting it catch the red glow. The etchings flared faintly, responding to proximity. The hound's head tilted, almost curious. Mara grabbed Saren's wrist. Their fingers were cold. Don't. If it takes it, you'll never get near the core. Saren looked at Mara's hand on her skin, humanish fingers with too many joints hidden under synth skin, and then at the hound. She felt a strange, unwanted familiarity in her chest, like hearing an old song you can't remember the lyrics to. Retrieval units follow protocols, Saren said, voice low. Protocols can be bent. Mara stared at her. How? Saren's lips curved, not a smile. An edge. By giving it a choice it wasn't designed for. She stepped forward. The hound flexed, blades clicking faster. Mara stumbled back, whispering a curse. Saren held the cylinder up in front of her face like an offering and spoke, not loudly, not theatrically, but with the same quiet authority that had made a customs officer forget how to breathe. You want the key, she said? Then come take it. The hound lunged. Its limbs snapped forward with insect speed. One hooked claw caught the cylinder, metal scraping against obsidian's surface, and yanked. Saren let it pull, guiding the motion rather than resisting. She pivoted, hips turning, posture regal even in violence, and used the hound's own momentum to swing its head into the lift wall. The impact rang like a bell. The hound recoiled, blades chattering, limbs scraping for purchase. Mara shouted, Saren! But Saren wasn't finished. Her free hand flashed up to the torn ceiling panel, fingers finding a bundle of old wires. She yanked hard. Sparks spat red-orange, filling the cabin with the smell of burned insulation. The hound froze for half a second, confused by the sudden noise and light. In that half-second Saren pressed the black cylinder against the exposed wiring. The etchings lit, golden, warm, a pulse like a heartbeat. The entire lift shuddered. A tone filled the shaft. Low, harmonic, impossibly deep, like a choir singing through metal. The hound jerked as if struck. Its limbs spasmed. Its speaker voice warped into static. Mara's eyes went huge. What did you do? Saren stared at the cylinder, feeling it thrum in her palm like it had been waiting for her touch for a very long time. I introduced it, she said softly, almost to herself, to the thing it's been hunting for. The lift lights flickered, then died completely. In the black, something else woke up. Not the hound. Something behind the walls, beneath the shaft, a presence spreading like cold water. A whisper slid through the speakers, no longer machine flat, but layered, feminine, and ancient. Saren! Mara gasped, clutching their throat port as if it suddenly burned. Saren's amber eyes widened a fraction. The voice wasn't coming from above. It was coming from below. And it knew her name like it had been waiting to say it. The whisper lingered after the speakers died, not as sound but as pressure, like a fingertip pressed to the inside of the skull. Saren! Mara's breath hitched. They clamped a hand over the interface port in their throat as if trying to stop something from crawling in or out. Their eyes shone wet in the dark. Saren didn't move. Her heart slowed instead of racing, a practiced discipline, and yet something beneath that discipline trembled with recognition she refused to name. The black cylinder throbbed in her palm. Each pulse seemed to answer the station's new heartbeat. Is that? Mara began, voice cracking. Yes, Saren said, and hated how certain she sounded. It's the core. But it's talking. Mara's words came out like a prayer and a curse in the same breath. It's not supposed to. A clang reverberated above them. The hound, still in the torn ceiling, spasmed and scraped, its limbs searching for purchase with panicked urgency. Its blades clicked in bursts, like teeth chattering in cold. Saren could sense its confusion, like static. The tone she triggered, harmonic, deep, had changed something. The hound's protocol had found a larger authority. The lift stopped falling. Not gently, violently, with a jolt that drove Mara to their knees. Saren bent with it, balanced, boots gripping the floor. Dust rained down. Somewhere, old bolts squealed in protest. Then the cabin began to slide sideways. Mara looked up, wild-eyed. Lifts don't go sideways. This one does, Saren replied. A seam of light appeared between the doors, thin as a blade, then widened. Not the usual station lighting. This was darker, violet-tinged, like twilight filtered through deep water. The doors peeled open. Beyond them was not a corridor. It was a chamber carved into the station's guts, ribs of black metal arching overhead, surfaces that weren't welded so much as grown, smooth and seamless like bone. Thin strands, fiber optic or nerve, ran along the walls in luminous veins, pulsing slow. Mara stumbled forward, then stopped short as if an invisible line had been drawn across the threshold. That's not human construction. Saren stepped out anyway. The air here smelled different, less sterilizer, more mineral, like wet stone after rain. Her scales along her shoulders prickled, glossy in the violet light. She felt watched from every direction, not by cameras but by something aware. Behind them, the hound tried to squeeze through the gap. Its head thrust forward, blades clicked. It emitted a garbled burst of static. The chamber answered. A wave rolled outward, silent, but strong enough to make the hound's limbs lock rigid. Its entire body trembled, then sagged, hanging limp in the doorway like a puppet with cut strings. The station's hidden veins glowed brighter in response, as if pleased. Mara let out a shaky laugh. It shut it down. Saren's gaze didn't leave the chamber. It didn't shut it down, she murmured. It claimed it. Saren, Mara said, urgent now. We need to move. If the corporation, if the watch knows you're down here. A sound cut them off, footsteps. Not theirs. From the far side of the chamber, a door-shaped ripple formed in the wall, the metal softening like liquid. A figure emerged as if stepping through skin. Human shape. Corporate posture. White field coat with the Pelian crest stitched in silver. A calm, controlled smile. Dr. Eidolon Voss. Saren knew the name before she knew the face, because her own past had worn it like a bruise. Voss's eyes skimmed Saren's horns, her scales, the midnight blue glow of her skin in violet light. No surprise. Just confirmation. Saren K., Voss said warmly, as if greeting an invited guest. You always did find the locked rooms. Mara backed away, hand fumbling inside their coat. Saren didn't reach for a weapon, she didn't have one. She only shifted her stance, grounded, regal, ready. I was told you were dead, Saren said. Voss's smile widened by a millimeter. So was I once. Death is a paperwork problem. Mara hissed. Your watch. Corporate security oversight. Voss corrected politely. We prefer stewardship. The station is an asset. An asset must be protected. Saren lifted the cylinder slightly. From me? Vasa's gaze flicked to the key and softened with something like reverence. From waste. From ignorance. From the wrong hands. Mara spat. You mean from anyone who isn't you? Vas ignored Mara entirely, like a manager ignoring a stain. The court called you, Vas said to Saren. That's rare. It means your blood still resonates with it. Saren's throat tightened. My blood isn't yours to catalog. It already was, Vas replied, and the warmth vanished. Come with me. We can do this cleanly. You'll be safe, comfortable. And Mara. Vas glanced at them at last, eyes cool. Will receive a swift correction for theft. Mara's hand emerged holding a small device, and emitted the size of a coin with a pronged edge. Their fingers shook. Back off. Vas sighed. Threatening me is like threatening gravity. Saren stepped half a pace forward. The chamber's luminous veins brightened at her movement, as if leaning toward her. Vas noticed, just a flicker of concern. Saren's voice dropped to that quiet, irresistible level. You didn't come alone. Vas's smile returned. Of course not. The wall behind Vas rippled again. 2 more figures stepped through, armored, visors down, rifles matte black. Corporate troopers, quiet, efficient, already aiming. Mara's breath turned into a whine. Saren's grip tightened on the key until its edges dug into her palm. Vas spread their hands. One step toward peace, Saren. Give me the key. The chamber pulsed once, hard, like a warning. And from somewhere deeper than the walls, the feminine voice returned, clearer now, braided with echoes. Saren, open! Saren's eyes widened, because the voice didn't just speak. It pulled. And her hand, against her will, began to lift the key toward a seam in the chamber floor that hadn't been there a moment ago. What was she about to unlock? Herself, or something that had been waiting under Pelion for centuries? The seam in the floor spread like a smile. Not a mechanical hatch. No hinges, no bolts. The black metal simply parted along a perfect curve, revealing a narrow slot rimmed with faintly glowing lines that matched the key's etchings. Mara grabbed Saren's forearm with both hands. Saren, don't! Saren's muscles trembled against invisible pressure. It wasn't pain. It was insistence. The core's voice threaded through her nerves as if it had always had access. Vas's troopers tightened their aim. One of them said, flat through a vocoder, Targets interfacing. Let her, Vas murmured. Their calm was too practiced, too hungry. This is what we wanted. Saren's jaw clenched. She forced her eyes to Vas. You set the hound on me. I set a lock on the station's secret. Vas replied softly. You were the key that wandered away. Mara's mouth opened, then shut. Their face went pale beneath the red-violet light. You made her? Vas didn't deny it. Their smile did the work. Saren exhaled, steadying herself. If the core could pull her, perhaps she could pull back. She shifted her stance, slight arch, grounded feet, and let her body go still. Not surrender. Alignment. Then she spoke, not to Vas, not to Mara, to the chamber itself. Why did you call me? The air thickened, as if listening. The voice came from everywhere. Because you are not finished. Mara flinched. It's inside my head. Saren's scales along her cheekbones glimmered. What are you? A pause, ancient, considering. A vessel. A memory. A gate. Vas's eyes sharpened. Stop talking to it. They snapped, the first crack in their composure. Insert the key. Saren looked down at the slot. The key warmed, eager. She could feel the station's hidden veins brightening, converging. Mara whispered, broken. If you open it, you don't know what comes out. Saren's lips parted slightly. Neither do they. She moved. The key slid into the slot like it belonged there. The moment it seated, the chamber shuddered. Luminous veins surged with light, amber now, not violet, matching Saren's eyes. The seam widened into a circular aperture, descending into darkness lit by slow spirals of floating glyphs. A wind rose from below, smelling of cold stone and metal rain. The troopers stumbled. Their rifles' indicator lights flickered. Voss took one involuntary step back. Mara grabbed Saren's sleeve, voice high. "Close it! Close it!" But the key wouldn't release. It had locked itself in place. Saren's palm stuck to it, as if her skin and the obsidian cylinder had fused. The core's voice deepened. "Come!" Something moved beneath the opening, vast, slow, like a creature turning in sleep. Voss recovered, barking. "Containment protocol! Now!" The troopers fired. Their rounds didn't hit Saren. The bullets stopped midair, as if space had turned to gel, then crumpled and dropped like dead insects. The chamber hummed with a tone so low it vibrated bone. Mara stared, mouth open. "That's impossible." Saren felt the force around her, not hostile, protective. As if the station recognized her as belonging. Voss's face tightened, finally revealing fear. "Saren," they said, voice soft again, coaxing. "You don't understand what you're doing." Saren's amber gaze locked on them. "I understand enough." She yanked her hand back with all her strength. Pain lanced up her arm as the bond resisted, then snapped. The key came free, slick with a thin film of light. The aperture below surged wider in response, like an eye opening fully. The voice whispered, almost tender, "Bring them." Mara's device in their hands suddenly blinked green, as if hijacked. Their throat port warmed, they gasped, clutching it. And behind Voss, the wall rippled again, more troopers arriving, only to freeze mid-step as the chamber's gravity shifted. The floor tilted toward the opening. Everyone slid. Mara screamed. Voss shouted a command that never finished. Saren lunged for Mara, caught their coat, but the pull was too strong, like falling into a planet. They plunged together into the aperture's darkness, light spiraling around them like slow, luminous snow, while above, Voss's last expression was not triumph but terror, as if they just realized they weren't opening a door, they were being swallowed by it. They didn't fall forever. The descent became a glide, a controlled spiral, as if invisible hands were guiding them down. Saren's hair streamed upward like ink in water. Her horns caught faint light, polished curves flashing. Mara clung to her, eyes squeezed shut, whispering frantic nonsense into her coat. They emerged into a space that stole breath. A vast hollow beneath the station, so large it made Pelian's public ring feel like a toy. Columns rose from darkness to darkness, not perfectly vertical but subtly curved, like the ribs of something enormous. Between them, suspended platforms floated without visible supports, connected by bridges of woven metal that shimmered like spider silk. At the center hung a sphere the size of a small ship, wrapped in luminous veins. Its surface wasn't smooth, it was layered, like overlapping petals, each inscribed with drifting glyphs. The air here was warmer, thick with ionized dust that glittered. Every inhale tasted like storms. Mara finally opened their eyes and made a strangled sound. "This is under Pelion?" Saren's boots touched a platform that rose to meet her, softening the landing. It felt like stepping onto a living palm. The platform flexed beneath her weight, then steadied. Behind them, other bodies dropped through the aperture and landed hard, troopers, grunting, scrambling for footing. Voss landed last, not gracefully, coat flaring. They pushed themselves up, face tight with fury, and awe. Saren held the key close now, as if it might run away. "What is this place?" she asked the air. The voice answered from the hollow itself, reverberating through columns and veins. "The cradle." Mara's throat port glinted, they swallowed. "It's using the station like a shell." Voss stepped forward carefully, like approaching an animal that might bite. "Magnificent." They breathed, then lifted their gaze to Saren with something sharp. "And it answers to you." "It answers to itself," Saren corrected. Voss's eyes narrowed. "You think you're free of our work?" "Saren, your cells were tuned to this. Your body is an interface. You are." Stop, Saren said. The word wasn't loud, but the hollow responded. A wave of pressure slammed into Voss and the troopers, driving them to their knees. Rifles clattered away, sliding to the platform's edge and stopping as if pinned. Mara stared at Saren, trembling. You did that? Saren looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers. She could feel the cradle's systems like an extra sense. Currents of power, patterns of attention, the slow pulse of something dreaming. I didn't, she said quietly. It did. For me. The sphere at the center rotated. Petal layers unfurled slightly, revealing a core of amber light that matched Saren's eyes so closely it felt like looking into a mirror that remembered her. The voice softened. Saren K. Lineage incomplete. Purpose delayed. Mara let out a shaky laugh that broke into a sob. It's reading you. Voss, still kneeling, lifted their head. Yes, they said, voice low. Reading the only compatible host we ever made. Saren's gaze snapped to Voss. Host. Voss's smile returned, strained. Did you think you were just a woman with horns? A beautiful accident? No. You are the answer to a problem older than any corporation. Mara spat through tears. You're lying. Voss's eyes flicked to them. Am I? Ask the cradle. Ask what it wants from her. The sphere pulsed. The air hummed. Saren swallowed, and asked anyway. What do you want from me? A pause. Then the voice, quiet as breath on glass. To awaken. Mara's grip on Saren's sleeve tightened painfully. No. Voss's mouth twitched with satisfaction. There it is. Saren's stomach clenched. Awaken what? The sphere unfolded further, petals peeling back to reveal not machinery but something like a silhouette, a shape suspended inside the amber light, humanoid, curled like a sleeping person. Mara whispered, horrified. That's someone. The voice answered. The pilot. Voss exhaled, reverent. The legend the first builders recorded and then buried. Saren stared at the sleeping shape and felt a tug, not in her hand this time, but in her chest, as if her heart recognized its rhythm. Why do you need a pilot? She asked. The cradle's glow deepened. The columns thrummed. And the voice finally said what made Mara's blood go cold. Because the ship must leave. Saren's eyes widened. Ship? Voss's smile turned feral. Pelion isn't a station, they whispered. It's a vessel. And you just put your hand on its ignition. Above them, somewhere in the public ring, alarms began to wail, faint, distant, like the world had finally noticed the thing beneath it was moving. And in the amber sphere, the sleeping silhouette's fingers twitched. Was it waking because Saren arrived, or because it sensed the wrong people kneeling nearby? The alarms above grew louder through the cradle's bones, transmitted as vibration more than sound. The floating platforms quivered. Tiny motes of ion dust swirled faster, like snow caught in a rising wind. Mara looked up instinctively, as if they could see through kilometers of metal. They're mobilizing the watch. Voss's eyes glittered. Of course they are. We've waited decades for this moment. They shifted, careful, testing the invisible pressure keeping them down. And you, Saren, have made their patience meaningless. Saren stood very still, her posture regal even with fear tightening her ribs. If this is a ship, she said, voice measured, then what happens to the people on Pelion? The cradle answered without hesitation. They will be carried. Or they will be shed. Mara's face drained. Shed? Voss spoke softly, almost kindly. The public ring is an attachment. A barnacle. If the vessel moves, it may detach. Mara's eyes snapped to Saren, pleading. You can't let that happen. Thousands. I know, Saren murmured. The amber sphere pulsed again, as if impatient with human morality. The sleeping silhouette inside shifted, curling tighter. Saren felt its presence like a second gravity. Voss watched her, reading every micro-movement. You're thinking like a person, they said. But you're not only that anymore. You can be more. You can. Saren's gaze cut to them like a blade. You want to ride this ship. Voss didn't deny it. I want stewardship. I want control. I want humanity to finally have something that isn't borrowed from the ruins of older civilizations. Mara barked a laugh, bitter. By sacrificing everyone on board. Voss's smile thinned. Sacrifices are a currency you spend when you want a future. Saren's fingers tightened around the key. The etchings glowed faintly. And what does the cradle want? The voice replied. Completion. Mara whispered. Saren, don't listen. But Saren did listen, because the cradle's voice was braided with something familiar now, echoes of her own thoughts, old dreams she'd woken from sweating, images of corridors she'd never walked yet somehow remembered. She took a step toward the central sphere. The platforms shifted, accommodating her, bridges aligning like they were eager to help. Voss's eyes widened. Yes, they breathed. Yes, go. It's calling you. Mara grabbed Saren's wrist again, desperate. You don't know what completion means. It might mean you stop being you. Saren looked at Mara's shaking hands, at the interface port in their throat. You brought me here. I brought you here to stop them, Mara said, voice raw. Not to give yourself to it. Voss leaned forward as far as the pressure allowed. Mara is afraid of losing their leverage, they said smoothly. Because without you, they're nothing. Mara's eyes flashed. I'm afraid of losing you. Saren raised her free hand, palm out, not a command to silence, but a request for space. The air obeyed, the cradle's hum softened. She took another step toward the sphere. The sleeping silhouette inside uncurled slightly, as if sensing proximity. Its face remained turned away, but Saren felt its attention brush her skin like warm breath. The voice whispered, Touch. Saren reached out. Mara lunged, trying to pull her back, and in that exact moment, Voss moved. A tiny device flicked from their sleeve, a needle-thin dart propelled by compressed gas. It shouldn't have been possible under the cradle's pressure, but Voss had planned for this place. The dart hissed through the air and struck Mara's throat port with a soft, wet click. Mara froze. Their eyes went wide, then blank. Their mouth opened, but no sound came out. Saren spun. Mara! Voss exhaled in relief. A bypass. A command leash. Their voice was almost tender with admiration for their own cruelty. I wondered if your little thief had the audacity to implant themselves as a remote interface. They did. So convenient. Mara's body straightened unnaturally, muscles locking into corporate posture. Their hand lifted, not trembling now, and pointed at Saren with the emitter coin. Saren's stomach turned. Voss, undo it. Voss smiled. Not until I have what I came for. The cradle's voice changed, sharp, warning. Interference. Saren's scales along her shoulders darkened as adrenaline surged. Mara, fight it! She pleaded, keeping her voice low, intimate. Listen to me. You're still there. Mara's lips moved. A whisper leaked out, faint as static. Run. Then the emitter in Mara's hand flashed. A net of light snapped around Saren, thin, invisible strands that tightened instantly, pinning her arms to her sides. It wasn't pain, it was restraint, precise and humiliating. Her horns tilted as she struggled, hair falling across her face in dark waves. Voss rose slowly as the cradle's pressure eased around them, because the cradle was still listening to Saren, and Saren was restrained. Thank you, Voss murmured. Now. Insert the key. Wake the pilot. And then we'll decide what parts of Pelion get to remain attached. Saren glared, amber eyes burning. If you think I'll cooperate. Voss leaned close, voice like silk. You already are. Behind them, the amber sphere opened one petal further, and inside, the sleeping silhouette's eyes snapped open, glowing the same molten amber as Saren's. And the pilot, awake now, turned its face toward her, smiling like it recognized a missing limb. Why did that smile look like relief, and hunger at the same time. The pilot's face was not fully human. It had human softness, cheekbones, lips, a curve of brow, but the skin shimmered with faint metallic undertones, like moonlight trapped under glass. When it smiled, the expression was too intimate for a stranger and too familiar for comfort. Saren strained against the light net. The strands tightened when she fought, reading effort and converting it into stillness. She forced herself to stop, chest rising slow, posture unbroken even in captivity. "Who are you?" she asked the pilot, voice controlled. The pilot's lips moved, but the sound didn't come from the sphere. It came from everywhere, like the cradle speaking through a newer mouth. "I am what you were made to finish." Mara stood rigid, eyes blank, emitter raised. A tear slid down their cheek anyway, proof that somewhere inside, they were screaming. Voss watched the pilot like a starving person watching bread. "At last," they whispered. "The symbiosis." Saren swallowed, keeping her gaze on the pilot. "You can hear me? I can feel you." The pilot's amber eyes narrowed with something that looked like affection. "Your body carries my language. Your blood carries my map." Saren's grip on herself nearly slipped. "I'm not your map." Voss chuckled softly. "You are. You're a living authentication key. A host interface. The only one the cradle will accept." The cradle's hum deepened, displeased. "No. She is not only host. She is line. She is will." Voss blinked, thrown by the correction. Their composure cracked again. "It speaks back." Saren's eyes flicked to the key in her hand, still clenched despite the net. Its glow stronger now, responding to the pilot's wakefulness. She felt the cradle's attention on her, heavy and expectant. "Let Mara go," Saren said to Voss. Voss spread their hands. "Once you do what you're here to do." Saren turned her gaze to Mara's face, to the tear. "Mara, if you can hear me, blink twice." Mara's eyelids fluttered once. Twice. A tiny rebellion. Saren's chest tightened. She looked back at the pilot. "If you can feel me," she said, "feel this. I won't let them kill everyone on Pelion." The pilot tilted its head, smile softening. "Then we must choose what to keep." Voss stepped forward, tone sharp. "No choosing. We steer. We command." The pilot's smile vanished. The cradle's veins flared. The air thickened. "You are not recognized," the pilot said, and this time the words carried weight like a hand closing around a throat. Voss's coat fluttered as if caught in an unseen wind. They staggered. Voss snarled. "I built the protocols that. You decorated the cage." The pilot's eyes returned to Saren. "Free me fully. Merge. Then I can move the ship gently. Without shedding. Without death." Saren's throat went dry. "Merge how?" The pilot's gaze slid to Saren's horns, to the scales along her collarbone, to the glow beneath her skin. "You already began. You feel the cradle's pulse, yes? That is the first thread. The rest is closeness." Voss recovered enough to bark. "Don't listen. It will consume you." Mara's mouth twitched, and a whisper escaped around the leash. "Truth, both." Saren inhaled. She could feel it, two futures branching like cracks in glass. One, Voss takes control, uses her like a tool, sheds the public ring if necessary, calls it progress. 2, she merges with something ancient and becomes, what? A captain? A passenger in her own skin? The cradle spoke again, almost gentle. "Will is required. Consent is required." Voss's eyes widened, startled again. "Consent?" Saren latched onto that word like a lifeline. "You can't force me." The pilot's gaze held hers. "I do not want a slave. Slaves break. I want a partner." Voss hissed. "It's lying." But the cradle's veins dimmed, waiting, like an animal that would not bite unless invited. Saren's mind raced. The net restrained her body, but not her voice, not her attention. She looked at Mara's emitter, at the leash dart in their throat port. If she could make the cradle recognize Mara's will. If consent mattered, maybe she could break the leash. Saren spoke to the cradle, not loudly, but with iron in the softness. Mara didn't consent. The cradle's hum shifted, attentive. Saren continued, "They're being overridden. If will matters here, then the leash is an insult." Mara's eyes flickered, just a spark. The pilot's gaze slid to Mara. "Unclean command." Its voice sharpened. "Remove." Voss snapped. "No!" The air around Mara's throat port shimmered. The dart popped free with a wet metallic click and shot into space, dissolving into dust before it hit the floor. Mara collapsed forward, coughing, clutching their throat, eyes suddenly alive with fury and relief. The emitter in their hand clattered away. Voss staggered back, face contorted. You can't!" Mara sucked in air and spat. "Oh, it can." Saren's net loosened slightly, sensing a shift in authority. She seized the moment, twisting her wrist, sliding the key between two strands. The glow from the etchings flared, hot amber, and the net snapped apart like brittle thread. Freed, Saren stepped forward, hair settling down her back like a dark cape. She didn't rush. She didn't shout. She simply moved with quiet inevitability. Voss raised a hand, trying to trigger something on their sleeve. The cradle's pressure slammed them flat to the platform. Mara crawled to Saren's side, voice hoarse. "Don't merge," they whispered urgently. "There has to be another way." Saren stared at the pilot, now fully awake inside the sphere, hands pressed against the translucent amber, as if against glass. "Is there?" Saren asked. The pilot's eyes softened. "Yes. But it costs time. And the watch above is already cutting into the cradle." As if on cue, a distant grinding echoed through the hollow, metal screaming against metal, followed by a tremor that rippled through the columns. Mara's face went white. "They're drilling." The pilot's voice dropped to a whisper only Saren seemed to feel. "Choose, Saren. Partner with me, or let them tear the ship open from the outside." Saren's fingers tightened on the key as the tremor hit again, harder this time, and cracks of light spidered across one of the far columns. How many minutes did she have before Pelion's public ring became shrapnel? The drilling above became a rhythm, grind, pause, grind, each pulse matched by a shudder in the cradle. Dust rained in glittering sheets. The floating platforms bobbed like boats in a storm. Mara clutched Saren's sleeve, nails biting through fabric. "If they breach this place, they'll shoot first and study later," Saren finished, voice flat. Voss, pinned to the platform by invisible pressure, managed to lift their head. Their smile was gone, replaced by naked calculation. "They'll breach," they said. "Because they have to. Because you opened the door and you can't close it without me." Saren's eyes flicked to them. "You're assuming you're still relevant." Voss's laughter was thin. "I'm human. That's always relevant." The pilot's gaze remained fixed on Saren, hands still pressed to the sphere's inner surface. "The outside tools are crude. They will cut wrong. The vessel will bleed." "Bleed?" Mara echoed, voice shaking. "It's alive." "Alive enough," Saren murmured. She stepped closer to the sphere. The amber light washed her skin, making the midnight blue look like deep ocean at dusk. Her scales glimmered. In the glow, her horns cast long shadows that curved like crescent moons. "Tell me exactly what merging means," Saren said. The pilot's mouth curved, not a hungry smile now, but something almost shy. "It means I share control. It means you feel the ship as your body, and I feel your body as my anchor. It means we steer together." Mara shook their head hard. "That's possession dressed up as romance." The cradle corrected gently. "Not possession. Symmetry." Saren's chest tightened. "And if I say no?" The pilot's eyes flicked upward, toward the distant grind. "Then you will fight them alone. You may win. But if you lose, they will carve you into a tool. And they will force a pilot anyway, one without consent." That will end in rupture. Voss hissed. Lies. The cradle's hum darkened, displeased. Truth. Saren closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Inside the black behind her eyelids, she saw flashes, memories that weren't hers. Stars seen through unfamiliar windows, a long corridor lined with sleeping pods, hands on a control surface that felt like warm skin. She saw herself, but older, standing at a threshold, horns crowned by starlight, saying a word in a language that tasted like meadow rain. She opened her eyes. If consent is required, she said, then I set terms. The pilot's gaze brightened. Speak. Saren pointed the key at Voss without looking away from the sphere. They don't come with us. Voss's face twisted. With us? Saren's voice stayed calm. You said the vessel must leave? Fine. But Voss doesn't get to ride it. Voss tried to move, failed, and spat. You'll doom humanity's chance at. Saren cut them off. Humanity's chance doesn't need your leash. Mara swallowed, eyes wet. And the people above? Saren's stomach clenched again. That was the hardest part. She looked at the pilot. Can we move without shedding the ring? The pilot hesitated. Just long enough to make fear surge. Then, yes. But the attachment must be softened. Release slowly. We can carry it into drift, then detach it gently at a safe orbit. Mara whispered. That still detaches it. It's better than shrapnel, Saren said, and hated the coldness in her own logic. The drilling above screamed louder. A tremor hit so hard the platforms dipped. A distant crack echoed, followed by a faint, faraway human scream transmitted through the station structure. Mara's eyes went wide. They already breached something. The pilot's voice sharpened. Time. Saren felt something inside her settle. Not certainty. Decision. She placed her palm against the sphere's surface. It wasn't cold, it was warm, like skin warmed by sun. The amber light surged up her arm, crawling along her veins like liquid fire. Mara grabbed her shoulder. Saren, please. Saren turned her head slightly, amber eyes softening. Stay close, she murmured. If I change, if I become something else, pull me back. Mara's lips trembled. How am I supposed to pull back a ship? Saren gave the faintest smile. By reminding me I'm still a person. She looked back at the pilot. My terms, she said. No erasing me. No taking over. We steer together. And we save who we can. The pilot's hands pressed harder against the inner surface. Agreed. The cradle's voice softened into something almost like relief. Consent logged. Bond permitted. The key in Saren's hand melted, not into liquid, but into light that flowed into her palm and vanished beneath her skin. The etchings burned briefly across her fingers, then sank into her flesh like ink. Mara gasped. Saren, your hand! Saren's eyes flared brighter. The amber glow spread across the obsidian scales of her cheekbones, making them look like constellations. The sphere opened completely, petals unfurling. A bridge of light formed from its interior to Saren's chest, thin as a thread. The pilot stepped forward, out of the sphere, onto the light, barefoot, graceful, eyes locked on Saren. Up above, the drilling finally punched through. A shaft of harsh white light stabbed down into the cradle, carrying dust, debris, and the distant roar of corporate voices. Voss's eyes gleamed. They're here. The pilot reached towards Saren's face like a lover and a surgeon at once. Saren didn't flinch. The pilot's fingertips touched her forehead. And the cradle filled with a blinding surge of amber as Saren felt a second mind slide into alignment with hers, like two gears finally meshing. Mara screamed her name, distant. And Saren, half herself, half ship, heard Pelion Station's entire structure groan, not in pain, but in awakening. Was that groan the sound of salvation, or the first note of a catastrophe too large to stop? Saren's perception snapped wide. The cradle vanished and became inside. Columns were no longer pillars but tendons. Platforms were bones. The luminous veins were arteries carrying power instead of blood. Pillion's public ring above wasn't. Above, it was a heavy, fragile crown strapped to her skull. She inhaled, and the ship inhaled with her, pulling air through vents, stabilizing pressure, sealing fractures. Mara's voice reached her from a great distance, and from inches away at the same time. Saren! Saren, look at me! Saren turned, both her head and the ship's attention pivoting. She saw Mara small on the platform, hair plastered to their forehead with sweat, eyes wide with terror and devotion. I'm here, Saren said, and her voice came out doubled, hers, and something deeper beneath it. The pilot stood close, almost shoulder to shoulder, their aura braided with hers. Not pushing. Present. Above, the breach widened. Corporate troopers spilled into the cradle's upper access, lights stabbing, rifles raised. Their boots clanged on foreign metal. A loudspeaker blared. Security oversight! Stand down! Voss, still pinned, laughed hoarsely. They'll kill you the moment you hesitate. Saren felt the ship's fear, not emotional, but mechanical, risk assessments blooming like fireworks. 100 solutions unfolded. Some clean. Some brutal. She chose. The cradle's gravity shifted. Troopers were lifted gently off their feet, suspended in midair like insects caught in amber. Their rifles floated away, drifting to the side and clicking into a magnetized rack as if stored by polite hands. One trooper shouted, voice small in the vastness. What the? Mara stared upward, astonished. You're controlling them without harming them. Saren swallowed. I'm trying. The pilot's voice threaded through her thoughts, intimate and steady. We must move. They will keep coming. Saren felt the public ring's mass again, thousands of lives, unaware or screaming. She tasted their panic through sensor feeds, alarms, rushing footsteps, prayers whispered into comms. She felt the station's outer hull flex as corporate cutters bit into it. She looked at Mara. I need you. Mara blinked hard. Me? How? Saren's mind, ship mind, reached into Pillion's systems and found Mara's interface port like a door handle. But now consent mattered. She didn't grab. She offered. Mara, Saren said, voice low and urgent. I can carry the ring, but I need someone to manage the human chaos. Comms. Evac guidance. If I flood them with machine logic, they'll panic. I need a voice they can follow. Mara's throat worked. You want me to be your mouth? Saren nodded. Only if you choose it. Mara's eyes glistened. They glanced at Voss, at the suspended troopers, at the breach above. Then back to Saren, really back to her, searching for the person in the ship. Mara stepped forward. I choose. The cradle hummed approval. A thread of light extended from Saren's chest to Mara's throat port, soft and careful, like a hand offered palm up. Mara let it connect. Their eyes widened, then steadied as data poured, not overwhelming, filtered through Saren's will. Mara inhaled sharply and began speaking, not to Saren, but into every speaker, every comm channel on Pillion. This is Mara, listen to me. The station is moving. Follow guidance lights. Do not run. Do not crowd airlocks. Families, hold hands. Look for amber arrows. Amber arrows lit along corridors above, Saren painting calm through illumination. Voss snarled, finally afraid of being irrelevant. You can't just take the station. Saren turned her gaze, ship gaze, on Voss. The pressure holding them down tightened. I'm not taking it, Saren said. I'm saving what your stewardship would sacrifice. Voss spat. You're an abomination built to obey. The pilot's presence flared beside Saren like a protective wing. He is noise, it whispered. But Saren didn't erase Voss. She made a different choice. She opened a channel, direct, private, to Voss's suit. Calm, let them hear her, close and calm, like a confession. You wanted control, she said. Here it is. Then she cut the cradle's pressure. Voss shot upright, staggering. Before they could move, a bridge formed beneath their feet. A narrow path of light leading upward, back toward the breach, toward the corporate troops. A corridor home. Saren spoke aloud. Leave. If you stay, the ship will treat you as a parasite. Voss's eyes darted, calculating survival against obsession. Their jaw clenched. You can't do this without consequences. Watch me, Saren replied. Voss backed onto the light bridge, face twisted with hatred and something like grief. Then they turned and ran, coat flaring, vanishing into the breach. Mara's voice continued over comms, steadying thousands. Amber arrows. Breathe. Listen. Saren felt Pelion's massive clamps release from the dock ring. Felt the docking arms creak like old joints. Outside, in vacuum, tether cables snapped free one by one with gentle precision instead of violent tearing. The ship, Pelion's true body, flexed. A deep vibration rolled through everything, like a whale singing. The stars beyond the hull shifted as thrusters, hidden, ancient, came alive. Mara gasped, eyes wide, as the whole world tilted. Saren, half woman, half vessel, spoke to the pilot inside her mind. We carry them into drift. Slow. Gentle. Agreed, the pilot whispered. They pushed. Pelion moved. Not as a station detaching from orbit, but as a sleeping giant rolling over in its bed. The public ring groaned. People screamed. Then the amber arrows brightened and Mara's voice soothed, guiding bodies through fear. In the cradle, suspended troopers began to drift downward as gravity normalized, dazed but unharmed. Saren felt the watch ships outside scramble, their engines flaring. She felt weapons lock on. A corporate commander's voice crackled through external comms. Unidentified vessel, stand down or be fired upon. Saren looked up, through hull, through space, and saw the watch fleet as points of light, tiny but lethal. The pilot's presence tightened. They will shoot. Saren's heart, her human heart, pounded inside the ship's vast rhythm. Then we don't give them a target. She opened a system she hadn't known she possessed, a field woven from the cradle's veins, projected outward, bending sensor returns, turning Pelion into a blur of impossible readings. Watch targeting system stuttered. But Voss, somewhere above, still had hands, still had codes, still had spite. A new alert bloomed in Saren's mind like blood in water. Self-destruct sequence armed. Mara's eyes snapped to Saren, terror returning. Saren! I'm seeing it too! The pilot's voice went razor-sharp. He cannot have control. He will burn the ring to deny you. Saren's amber eyes blazed as she felt the countdown begin deep in Pelion's systems. 10 minutes. 9. And Voss's voice, cold and triumphant, whispered over a hijacked channel. If I can't steer the ship, no one will. How do you disarm a bomb that's wired into your own nervous system, before thousands die with you? The countdown ticked through Saren like a fever. She felt it in coolant pressure spikes, in the trembling of structural ribs, in the way certain corridors above flashed warning red. Voss hadn't armed a simple explosive. They triggered a cascade, reactor overloads, clamp failures, venting protocols designed to tear the public ring away in a cloud of fire. Mara's voice on comms strained but stayed steady, a hero's steadiness born from terror. Everyone stay calm, amber arrows. Do not go toward red-lit corridors, repeat, avoid red. Saren reached into herself, into Pelion, and hunted the source. The self-destruct sequence wasn't a single switch. It was braided into thousands of systems like venom. The pilot's presence pressed close, intense. We can cut the ring loose now. Save the vessel. Saren's stomach clenched. And kill them. Not all. Some could reach pods. No, Saren whispered. Not to the pilot, not to Mara. To herself, to the part of her that still believed she was allowed to be only a person. I said we save who we can. Mara's eyes, down in the cradle, watching Saren's face, filled with tears. Saren, you can't save everyone. Saren's lips parted, and for a moment her quiet authority cracked into something raw. Watch me try. She found Vasa's signature in the system, like a stain of human code writing ancient architecture. Their command keys were piggybacking on corporate subsystems still attached to the ring, newer wiring, newer locks. The cradle hated it. The cradle could crush it, but doing so might also crush the ring's life support net. Saren breathed in slowly. The ship breathed with her. Pilot, she said in her mind, can you isolate the corporate graft without severing the ring? A pause, like a mind calculating 1,000 consequences. Then yes. But the strain will be intimate. You will feel it. Do it, Saren replied. The cradle's veins flared amber white. Saren's vision flooded with pathways, wiring diagrams overlaying flesh, conduits like tendons. She reached for the corporate graft and felt it resist like scar tissue. Cutting it was like cutting herself. Pain lanced behind her eyes. She gritted her teeth, horns angling as her posture tightened. Her midnight blue skin glowed brighter, as if lit from within by a storm trying to escape. Mara stepped forward instinctively. Saren! Don't touch! Saren rasped, voice doubled. Just keep talking to them. Mara nodded violently, tears spilling, and turned back to the calm channel, voice shaking but determined. You're doing great. Keep moving. Follow Amber. If you see someone frozen, take their hand. Saren pushed deeper. She found Vasa's control node, an access point in a corporate command module still embedded in Pelian's upper ring, something like a parasite's brain. She could feel Vas there too. Connected through suit comms, fingers flying over a panel, heart pounding with obsession. Saren opened a direct channel. Vasa's face flickered into her mind, eyes wide, hair disheveled, the calm gone. You can't stop it, Vas snarled. It's already primed. Saren's voice was soft, almost gentle. You're afraid. Vas laughed, brittle. I'm furious. You're afraid of being forgotten, Saren said, and felt the truth land like a weight. You wanted to be the one who brought humanity a ship. A god in a lab coat. Vasa's jaw clenched. I made you. Saren's amber eyes burned. You made a body. Not a will. She reached into the corporate node and did the only thing that felt honest. She offered Vas a choice. Consent, again. Even now. Even for them. I can lock you out without killing anyone, Saren said. But it will erase your access permanently. You will become just a person. Not a steward. Not a controller. Vasa's breathing quickened. And what do you want? Saren's throat tightened. I want you to stop trying to burn the world because you can't own it. For a moment Vasa's face twisted, hate, grief, hunger, then something small and human flickered behind it, exhaustion. Then the flicker hardened into spite. No! Vas slammed a command. The countdown jumped, systems accelerating. 7 minutes became 3 in a sickening lurch. Mara screamed, feeling it through the shared link. Saren, it sped up! Saren's pain sharpened into clarity. No more choices, she whispered, and the ship agreed. She cut. Not with brute force, but with precision. The cradle wrapped around the corporate graft like a constrictor and pinched, separating it from the vessel's ancient nervous system. The command module screamed in data, alarms blooming, then went dark. Vasa's face vanished from Saren's mind as if a door had slammed. The countdown stuttered. 2 minutes, 1, then froze. For a heartbeat, everything held. Then the self-destruct sequence dissolved like smoke. Across Pelion, red lights blinked out. Amber arrows remained, now joined by soft green. Mara sagged, sobbing, their hand over their throat port. It stopped. Saren, it stopped. Saren's knees nearly buckled. The pilot's presence steadied her like a hand at her back. You did it, the pilot whispered, not triumph, but awe. Above, the watch fleet's weapons finally stabilized enough to lock on again, only to find Pelion no longer where it had been. Saren bent sensors, folded signatures, turned the vessel into a ghost sliding between orbits. Mara wiped their face with a shaking sleeve. Where do we go? Saren looked out, through hull and stars, toward a dark stretch of space where old maps showed nothing but emptiness. Yet in her mind, a route glowed like a memory she'd always carried. Home, Saren said, and her voice sounded like herself again, mostly. The pilot's presence curled close, warm. Which home? The one they built you in? Or the one you were meant to find? Saren's gaze drifted to the public ring's life signs, thousands alive, frightened, guided. She felt their hearts like tiny lights. She felt her own heart too, stubborn, human, beating inside something vast. Both, she answered. Pelion, vessel and station, slipped into drift beyond the watch's reach, thrusters whispering like distant thunder. Mara exhaled, half laugh, half sob. Saren, are you still you? Saren looked down at her hands. Midnight blue skin, obsidian scales, faint amber lines under the surface like hidden constellations. She lifted her gaze to Mara, eyes still inviting in a dangerous way, but softer now. I'm here, she said. And in the quiet after catastrophe, with stars wheeling slowly outside and an ancient ship humming through her bones, Saren wondered, not with fear, but with a strange, hungry hope. If she could steer a vessel that had slept for centuries, what else had been sleeping inside her, waiting to wake?